All right. Hello, welcome to Bulldog Bites Lunchtime Interviews. The Office of Alumni and Community Relations is excited to offer these interviews that connect us during this time, and we're grateful to the alumni, friends, administrators, and faculty members who are helping to make them possible. In today's interview, Dr. Joseph Modica, Director of the University of Redlands School of Music, will be speaking with Eileen Mason from the class of 1965. Eileen had a successful decades-long career as a professional harpist, holding the principal role with the Indianapolis Symphony, the Kansas City Philharmonic, and the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. Thank you for joining us, Eileen, and Dr. Modica, please take it away.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks so much, Tracy. Hi, Eileen, how are you doing?
Okay, thank you. Surviving.
Great. It's a very strange time, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I know, never thought we would be experiencing what we are, but it seems like we're all getting through as best we can, and really grateful for Alumni Relations and Advancement for putting together this event, and really looking forward to talking to you today. So
thank you.
Glad we could connect. So you graduated from the U of R in '65.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your experience at Redlands.
From what I remember, my experience at Redlands was mainly in the music department, because once you declare a music major, that kind of takes over your life. So I spent most of my time on one end of the campus, and if I had to do a class someplace else, did I go somewhere else.
And that's true for most of our music students. So they sort of have their little island of Watchorn Hall over there.
Right.
We do encourage them to branch out and do some other things sometimes, but it's a very intensive program, isn't it?
Yes, it sure is.
Yeah. Did you ever perform in the Feast of Lights?
I sure did. I don't remember how many years, but at least a couple years, and there's not always a lot for the harp to do. So one year I even sang in it, which was really nice. I enjoyed that a lot.
That's wonderful. It's such an amazing tradition that we have, and we're so grateful. And looking back on that tradition, we actually have one couple who has been to every single one.
Oh my gosh!
Since the beginning, and they're there every Friday night to see the feast. And one year they drive from Central California, and they were driving down, and they were actually in a car accident, and they're in their 80s, and instead of going to the emergency room, they insisted on coming to the feast first. So it's a tremendous tradition that we have, and it's really cool that you could be a part of it. Towards the beginning, actually, in 1960, in the mid 60s. So pretty great.
Yeah, it was really a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's a wonderful legacy. After you graduated from Redlands, what was your next adventure?
My next adventure was a couple of years in the Indianapolis Symphony. I did an audition there, but my career at Redlands was spent mostly on learning solo music and playing orchestra music when I had to, or when I had the opportunity to. And so I hadn't a clue what audition even meant. Yeah. So, but apparently the conductor liked me well enough, so I was able to join the orchestra, and we did a couple of tours, and it was really a lot of fun. I looked at it as fun.
Sure.
Getting paid to travel was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And how long were you with them?
I was with them for 2 years. And then I was doing freelance work for 4 or 5 years. And then I finally joined the Kansas City Philharmonic, and I was there for 5 years until I auditioned in real life, when I knew what an audition meant. And then I got the job in Baltimore, and I was there for 24 years.
Yeah. 1978, I think you started there. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. At first, after I retired, I had trouble remembering when I retired, and when I started, and the orchestra always gave people who retired a photograph, and the orchestra members signed the mat, and then they put a little plaque down at the bottom that gave my years. So I had to go there to look to see what my years were first. I remember now.
That's funny. So you mentioned freelancing, and a lot of our music students are currently, thinking about their career path and what they might be doing after they leave Redlands. Many of them go off to do a master's degree. Some of them audition and get into an orchestra or a teaching gig or something like that. But many make a living by freelancing. What sort of advice would you have for current music students that are sort of starting to create a name for themselves, taking gigs, learning to freelance? What kind of advice might you have for them?
Well, I think the advice I would have for harpists is slightly different from what I might advise other instruments, because we can, in my opinion, we can create our own music, we can create our own recitals, we can sell them, and we can do everything by ourselves. But most of the other instruments, orchestral instruments, can't do that. So they either need somebody else, or they need to meet a lot of people and get to know a lot of people, especially those people who hire. And then they need to not undercut someone. And if they move to an area where there are people who are already working in their instrument, my advice would be to go talk to those people, introduce themselves, say, I'm interested in working, but don't go behind their backs to get jobs yourself.
It's really outstanding advice. And, I think, ambitious young musicians sometimes don't think about that, that there's a pecking order. There's a certain amount of time that you have to pay your dues, and so to speak, I certainly did in my career. So, that's really wonderful advice for young artists. And the collaboration too, we're constantly trying to teach them to be collaborative and think outside the box, and, be a little bit different in their approach, and find a way to make themselves special and marketable.
That's right.
It's really, it's hard to do.
It really is. Who you know, and quite often, at least in the orchestral world, the person with whom you've studied, that name is important. And it may not be quite as important as a freelance person, because you're actually in the area, and you're getting to know people yourself.
Right.
So, but it's not easy. And I think I've always said that, as I mentioned before, I think harpists have a much easier time of it, because we are one and by ourselves, and whatever we create, whatever we build, whatever recitals we give, we can do it ourselves. And it's an interesting instrument. Most people don't know anything about it. So it's an easy program to sell to somebody. But a flutist or a violinist is probably much more difficult, but not impossible by any means. And, create your own work rather than relying on somebody else.
Yeah, wonderful advice. Thank you. So when you were with Baltimore, I would assume that you had plenty of different conductors that have come through, and guest conductors, guest artists, maybe. Who were some of your favorite conductors to work with?
My favorite conductor was David Zinman, and we had him for the longest time during my tenure there. And he didn't bring me there. I was there already with Sergio Commissiona, and he was difficult to follow, but Zinman was very clear and musical, and I really enjoyed playing for him the most. We weren't able to have a lot of guest conductors. They didn't do a whole lot of that. And when we had guest conductors, it wasn't the George Schulte or the really top-notch guys for the most part. But David Zinman was really my favorite.
Yeah, it's a wonderful reputation. Absolutely. Wow, cool. our university president, Ralph Kunzel, has spent some time in the Baltimore area and sang with the Baltimore Choral Arts Society.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he sang under Tom Hall.
Yes.
And we had Tom Hall at the university last year, and he did a residency in the School of Music. And
really,
we had a wonderful time with him. He's such a great guy. So
yes.
Did you get to collaborate with the Choral Arts Society?
Very occasionally, yes. That was often a freelance job.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So outside of your normal contract.
Yes. Well, it didn't have anything. He just was able to hire orchestra members to play.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But the more instruments you have in your group, the higher your payroll is.
Right.
so he was careful about that.
Yeah.
But used harp occasionally.
For sure. So talk to us a little bit about, again, thinking about upcoming musicians and just trying to make their way in the world. Many times they're presented with a contract and they're asked to maybe negotiate a contract. And, what are some of the things that they should be looking out for? What are the things that they should be asking for in a contract and those kinds of things?
Well, in my opinion, I'm not the real expert on that. I think from what I hear from my colleagues and friends, the people now who are coming up and getting jobs, they are the ones who really know how to negotiate. I guess the best advice I would have in that regard is they should inform themselves of what a contract looks like, if they can get a hold of a contract before even going to the audition, and see what things are in it. And when you are interested in a job and you are offered a job, that's the best time to negotiate for a salary.
Yeah.
And also, I have heard lately that musicians are getting legal advice before they sign a contract. And that can be expensive, but sometimes a little investment will help in the long run.
Yeah.
So as far as specific things to go, well, most of us weren't real happy to play the Pops concerts. So a lot of people tried to negotiate getting those as time off.
Yes.
But, when you're starting, you're willing to play anything. It's fun to play everything. And it's a good learning experience. That's
right. And getting your name out there and getting the experience and working with different conductors and learning style, meeting people. It's such a valuable experience for a young musician to get out there and just play.
Yes, it sure is.
Wonderful. With the current pandemic and everything that we're all going through and experiencing, how has it affected your own life? And what are you doing to keep yourself occupied? And what sort of experiences would you like to share with us?
Well, one thing that I have really enjoyed is listening to and watching the creativity of musicians online. And one of the first links that someone sent me was the Rotterdam Philharmonic playing Ode to Joy, and how it started. I think it started with bass, and then each one joined in, and you saw finally everybody, and then I think they joined with a recording toward the end, because you heard the chorus, and obviously there's no chorus singing. But other orchestras and musicians, I've watched the San Diego Symphony website occasionally and the Baltimore Symphony website, and I'm amazed at how people are able to use electronics to put things together. And I have really enjoyed that. And recently a friend sent me I think it's a Facebook video of the Kalamazoo Symphony playing Prometheus. And that was much more sophisticated. The filming, the in and out, and featuring whomever was solo at that point, that was really sophisticated. And I see how things have improved over time. So I'm enjoying listening to some of those videos. Otherwise, I'm walking my dog, and I'm using that. I'm walking her more and finding hills where I can walk so I can bump up my cardio a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm spending a lot of time at my computer. I've cleaned out my bathroom cabinets. I cleaned out my kitchen back in February when I had it painted.
Uh-huh.
And I'm updating some documents, all computer stuff, passwords, things like that. And I have on my list to delete photos that I don't need anymore.
There you go.
So that's kind of how I've been dealing with all of this. Plus, since I have finally realized that I'm in what is considered high risk category, I have stayed home and I've learned how to navigate ordering on Amazon, ordering my groceries, ordering them on Instacart, and how to get them delivered when I want them delivered.
Sure.
So it's kind of a learning curve.
Sure.
And then doing my own cooking, and I like to cook, and it takes a while to clean it up. But I feel a little badly that I'm not supporting some of my local restaurants like I should. But I explain that I like my own cooking, so.
Yeah, I've been doing more cooking than normal, and I too love to cook, so that's been a good thing, to be able to spend time with family too, and just be home. And I've done a lot of DIY projects too, so
Right.
it's not all bad, but you certainly do miss our students and our faculty, and looking forward to getting back.
I'm sure. There's, in my opinion, there's a huge silver lining to this, even though it's deadly for so many people. But in the beginning, I have 4 stepchildren, and I spoke to my youngest one, and their kids are 16, 18, and 20. And I call on a Sunday night, FaceTime with them, and I see them all sitting around the dining room table playing Monopoly. Yeah. That wouldn't have happened without this. So in my opinion, that's a silver lining.
Yeah, there is a lot of good that's coming out of it for sure.
Yes, and I prefer to see the silver lining as much as I can.
That's wonderful. I have to ask about the masks that are behind you. They're so interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. After I retired, my husband was an architect, and he designed a house, and we built it and moved to Costa Rica and spent about 10 years off and on going back and forth between San Diego and Costa Rica. And these are Baruca masks by the native Baruca villagers. And they've gotten to be quite a tourist sales pitch, but I've enjoyed. They originated because when the Spaniards invaded Costa Rica, the natives thought they could make masks, scary masks like this, and scare away the Spaniards. And so the tradition has just continued, and now they make these masks to sell, and it's how the village. One of the ways, I guess, maybe the main way the village survives. And you have to. It's kind of a hike to get there, and in the rainy season, you don't want to go there because the road is too slick. And so, in the dry season, when I go to visit my friends, we go there usually, and it takes the better part of a day, and it's just really interesting to go to some of the different mask makers and see what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, they're so interesting. I really, really like them.
Well, thank you. I do too. Yeah. I love looking at them.
So what are you, now that you are retired, I assume you still have some music in your life. What do what are you doing to keep music part of what you do?
I subscribe to the San Diego Symphony and I go, and I subscribe to the theater in the park, the Old Globe Theater. That's not exactly music. They do have some musicals which don't suit me, but it is music. And I go to musical events as I can. I'm involved in the local chapter of the American Harp Society. I'm on the board for that. And we do at least one fundraiser a year, usually in the fall. And we have some auditions coming up. We do a spring concert, student concert. And in conjunction with that, we have scholarship auditions for seniors. And so this year we are moving it all online. And thankfully, one of our board members is a recent graduate from college. So she knows all the ins and outs of the internet and how to accomplish all of this. So that will be quite an activity when I'm going to be a judge. I've been a judge for it before several years. And so this will be a new experience of judging something online.
Yeah, wow.
So that kind of keeps me busy. Plus I'm practicing just a little bit these days.
Good.
Not a whole lot. Because you can't just sit down and play like you probably can on a piano.
Right.
Because I need my calluses before I can play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We had the American Harp Society at the University of Redlands a few years ago.
I know. And I was really torn whether I did not attend, but I was visiting my family and friends on the East Coast. It was right at the time that I always do that.
Yeah.
And if I had attended like I really wanted to, then I would have lost valuable time with my family and my friends there. So I fortunately opted not to.
Yeah, it was a wonderful conference. I went to some things, and I actually one of my choirs sang for one of the events, and so it was a really neat neat experience. Yeah, it was very cool. We have a request here from Sonia. Is your harp nearby to play a short piece?
Well, it's not as nearby as it could be, and I guess I would prefer not to expose myself.
You got it.
Thank you for asking.
No problem. And then we have another question. Does Eileen still keep in touch with any Redlands alumni, old classmates, etc.? And have you been back on campus lately?
It has been several years since I've been on campus. I keep in touch a bit with a couple because there are several who live around me. I mean, from between here and LA, they live. And actually, we had some of them set up a luncheon get together a couple days ago, probably.
Oh, wow.
And of course, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about suggesting we should do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good idea. I should propose that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't keep in touch with as many as I would like, but this is a good time to start.
That's right. Exactly. Well, consider yourself officially invited to the university campus, and we would love to have you come visit and maybe do a master class at some point or something. That would be really fun to have you back.
I'd love to do that. I did that several years ago, and I'd love to do it again.
Yeah. Well, Mary Dropkin is still there, so I'll maybe have her get in touch with you, and maybe we can get something arranged.
Okay, that would be great.
Awesome. It's been so nice to talk to you. Really a pleasure.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I think we will call it a day. And thank you again for joining us. And be well, stay healthy. And we'll see you very soon.